Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here. I happened to scratch my head at just the right time. Yeah, inmendham and such. Mostly. Partially still. Kind of. In spirit. Oh, I said something like in spirit. So I said a figure of speech. That somebody could take and pervert into, oh, he's religious. Yeah. Somebody could do that, but wouldn't be the right thing to do. So anyways, I've been noticing a lot of that in emails from some lunatic, and this use of I gotcha on a figure of speech kind of bullshit. I mean, this whole argument about playing with words and pretending you can rearrange the words so you can imply that somebody's saying something they're not saying. Like the consent argument, where you could argue that, clearly the argument is consent is a thing. It's good to have consent when you're going to experiment on somebody. Like if Dr. Frankenstein could get the abnormal brain consent before he does his experiment, it makes his experiment more ethical because the victim has said, okay, go ahead and fuck with me. Now, he should also get the consent of all the townspeople for him to make a monster that might, rape and pillage. So if he got all that, if he got consent to do the experiment, it makes the experiment more defendable as an experiment. And so the same argument can be made about this being a parent thing. It would be better if they had consent. And the fact that they don't have consent means that if things go wrong, they should pitchfork the professor. Dr. Frankenstein's in big frickin' liability trouble because he doesn't have any way to get out of the liability that he made the monster. And it's all on him. And nobody else agreed to it, so therefore he can't spread the liability and say it was oh dear, if something goes wrong, well, it's nobody's fault. Because everybody agreed to try the experiment. And so, the argument isn't you go get consent from people who don't exist. The idea isn't that you are imposing life on a person when you impose life. Obviously the person isn't here yet, but we know they will become one, and that's the whole point. The one that they will become will be a person, and they will have been imposed on, and that's just a fact. And so again, you can play little word games and pretend it's not a fact, but it's a fact. And you're just playing a word game, and I can't stop you from doing that, but I can just point out to people and illustrate that that's all a lot of these counter arguments are, just playing word games. I'm going to manipulate what you said into something you didn't say, and then show how that thing you didn't say is wrong. Well, fine, you can do that, but that's not playing reasonable or rational or fair. So whatever, go ahead and play your games with words. Clearly the point being made is there for anybody to understand. Nobody's arguing you go get consent, and people are arguing that not having it means something. It's not irrelevant. Okay, the fact that you can't get it just doesn't change the fact that you don't have it. And not having it means it's all on you. Alright, and you're just basically saying, well, I can commit the crime because nobody's going to make me pay for it, right? There's no universal police force. So this is another thing that comes up, is this nihilism bullshit that's still out there, and it shows up here and there, and you just say, what the fuck is that? So anyway, Old Fan was interviewing some person who's sort of against procreating, but not in any kind of significant way. Just likes to call it names, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to. Well, I sort of do want to be a little bit, just because this kind of wishy-washy crapola is just so useless. This fence walkers, again, I have, these people who can't pick a side when it seems kind of obvious. Yeah, shoot them first in the war because they just get in the way. Anyway. So, so you call yourself a nihilist. You're just, brought up nihilism anyway as some kind of subject, as if it makes any sense. And yeah, I mean, the simple way of looking at it is, oh yeah, there's no universal thinking thing that tells us what right and wrong is. Well, okay, sure, there's no God, there's no smarter intelligence that we know of sitting around telling us, sending us any messages about any kind of moral requirements or obligations or rules. And they're certainly not written on anything, right? I mean, the rules aren't written on trees or something. So you can't go find some tree that'll tell you, oh, it's definitely a wrong to impose suffering on somebody, So these are obviously facts that could still exist, though. I mean, just because nobody's said the words and because nobody's pointed it out doesn't mean it doesn't exist as a fact. So when somebody like me argues that sentient brains, okay, through the process of evolution, have acquired a function that clearly has something to do with value creation, because they are now having experiences that I have sampled, and I can taste the clear difference between good and bad feelings, and they are overtly valuable. I mean, it's built into them. Once you have the feeling, you can't draw any other conclusion, okay, than either that feels good or that feels bad. I mean, yeah, there are feelings that, wiggle right through the middle, but I'm just saying for 99% of the feelings, you can tell what side of the fence they're on quite overtly. I don't need to have any debate about it. I don't need to have a conversation. It just screams it, and some of them scream it so loud. I mean, there's just no way you can't hear the word, no, I don't want to do this. There's just no frickin' way you can confuse it. So that's just a fact. And once that exists in the universe, there's no way to say, oh, there's no value in the universe because there's nothing to judge it. Who cares about judging it? The fact is it exists. And it exists through your experience, and there's no rational way for you to sit there and pervert this simple fact into, I'm going to pretend nothing else really feels, or everything else is made out of, some synthetic matrix or some other kind of horse shit you're going to use to evade. The frame rate seems a little fucked, but anyway, evade just something obvious. I mean, what the hell is this crap? So, the subject isn't, is there a God to punish us? Are there cops to apprehend us and arrest us? Does having cops mean that value exists, and if there's no cops, there's no value? I mean, is that a rational way to argue or to make a point? That because there's nobody to punish you for violating the efficiency rules, that you didn't violate the efficiency rules, that you didn't do something that is negative, that will cause a negative implication of consequences versus the other thing you could have decided to do, and could have decided, again, let's not play with the words. You obviously couldn't, all right? We're all inevitable rolling snowballs, and we can only roll the way we're going to roll, based on how the universe is configured, and that's the way it's going to be. But the fact is that the decision process still has to be made through our logical engine. And that means we have to overcome a fact to do what we're going to do. So the simple truth is I could tell somebody that a roller coaster has a 50-50 chance of deforming your child. Now, once I've informed the person, and the person still puts their kid on the roller coaster, you've got to question, how did that happen? Yeah, it was inevitable that he was going to make this insanely stupid decision, but how the hell did his brain make that possible? How, once he was informed of the truth, did he find it rational to keep defending putting the kids in the roller coaster? And there are, I mean, the example isn't that far. This little metaphor or analogy I'm giving you isn't that far from the truth. I mean, people know these insane risks. They know what they're stepping into. They're given knowledge of it. I mean, the doctor explains, well, you have a genetic defect, and your child has a 1 in 4 chance of being born with claws as hands. Probably not a great idea to have kids. And yet they say, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. And you say, what kind of brain does that? What kind of brain says, well, reasonable risk. 1 in 4. Yeah, I mean, so, that's the part that seems incomprehensible, is how do brains go that bad, where even when people are informed, they still defend. So I could make an argument against, somebody was arguing I shouldn't argue capitalism and all this shit, and they're obviously inheritance welfare bullshitters, trying to defend rationalize their life, because the argument is just about efficiency. The idea is that the argument for capitalism is that it's highly efficient. Well, my argument is all of its efficiency, that is, all of this idea of earning it and giving people incentives and all of this crap, is all lost by this concept of inheritance. So if you mix inheritance into capitalism, you lose all of that merit pay idea. Okay, so all of the real good incentives are destroyed, and the only thing capitalism has now is the fact that it can exploit the poor. And so it's not really creating any you earned it, it's just creating an exploitation. Okay, it's winning through exploitation. It's raping. So it's not, it hasn't earned this, some sort of a perfect way to love. It's stolen it and perverted it. So yes, you fix capitalism by getting rid of inheritance, then it has some sort of merit. But you still have to have some protection against exploitation of overpopulation in different circumstances that mean you can just force people to beg, and outdo each other in malicious ways just because they don't have any freedom to choose. They will die if they, don't play the game in the insidious way. If they don't take the steroids, for example, in sports or something, they won't win. That's not a good system. That's not efficient. So the argument is yes, you're comparing the efficiency of two systems. Well, this idea of socialism where everybody just volunteers to work as hard as they can, well, yeah, that doesn't sound too likely to work. This commune idea that everybody's just a wonderful helper at heart and they all want to do their part. Now we know people are selfish bastards and they want to get stoned and eat Fritos and they really don't want to hear about what they've got to do today. And so that's not going to be a very efficient system in terms of motivating the little horses to run around the track. So you do have to motivate us. But the idea of putting half the horses, or 1/10 of the horses, or 1/100th of the horses, or 1/1000th of the horses, and giving them this huge head start, and then playing the game and saying, oh yes, there's still incentive, and there's no incentive. Why would I get in a horse race? Why would I have any enthusiasm for a horse race where I know, shit, they gave that other guy such a head start, there's no way I'm going to overcome that head start he has. Yes, he'll kick my ass, okay, because he can afford to kick my ass. He has a net, I don't have a net, we're walking the tightrope. Big difference. Those are open and shut. I mean, those are nail in the coffin kind of arguments. You're not going to get out of that with your silly rationalizations. It's just an argument about efficiency, and it's a huge inefficiency, okay, to give some horses free carrots for life. It's just stupid. And it's insanely wasteful because those carrots could have been used to do something productive. So it's like so there could be somebody out there who just loves yachting. Yachting is fun. And then I could explain, well, your yachts have wasted so much human labor. You could have actually built, in the last 50 years or 100 years, they could have built 15 Hoover dams, with all the labor that was wasted, making this yachting thing happen. Okay, huge amount of human resources just pissed away on bullshit. Hand carving railings and shit, and just hours and hours and hours of labor just wasted on shit, that 17 people enjoy. And I can explain all this, and then they could, are they still going to walk onto the yacht and say, oh yeah, this is fun? Once you have the context, again, once you know it's a rickety roller coaster, you've been given the facts, how the hell do you, with any kind of sensible, once you've seen the story of Frankenstein, how do you vote for, yeah, let's invite Dr. Frankenstein into the neighborhood? I mean, how, you know, what's your incentive, you know, to play this game that you don't understand? This simple argument. You know, fuck. Excuse the vulgarity. You know, it's just not, you know, you're just, the point is yes, you'll inevitably be belligerent to these truths, and somehow you will pretend they're not true, I guess, to enjoy your yachting. But I guess I would argue that in my life experience, the inverse happened, right? You acquire a certain amount of knowledge about something, and all of a sudden what you did enjoy in the past, you don't enjoy anymore. Because you know, oh, I'm seeing the fun side, and there's this whole ugly side to it. So I could argue that it was sort of like that with nature for me, right? As a kid, I was a little junior Tarzan. You know, I was sort of made to, you know, swing on vines in the jungle. You know, that's where I figured life was, and where I'd live peacefully and happily. But then I realized, you know, I was given little pieces of a glimpse of the horror. And then once you know about all this biology and all the microbes and all the little insects and all the other crap that's going on, it starts to get pretty ugly. And it's just not the kind of place you can go into the same kind of enthusiasm anymore, because you start seeing the blood on the tree, so to speak, metaphorically. You see the price for every little Tweety bird. You know, there's a bird on the ground, you know, a few weeks old, that it was decided they were one bird too many and he had to get kicked out of the car. You know, the whole stories that are the backstory of all the carnage that goes with this one little pretty moment, you know, the one little winning circle moment, and we're just going to forget about all the car wrecks, you know, all the carnage. All the failures, all the pain and the wasted suffering and all the rest of it for something that really doesn't mean anything, right? Again, it's a picture you could draw and say, is there really that much to this event? You know, it's like, you know, people pay like insane prices for a dinner to go out to dinner. Is the experience really made out of that much? You really can't manufacture it in a more economical environment. You know, you really can't figure out how to make an environment where you get the same effect, you know, at you know, 1/10 the price. I mean, you know, these are all just things that people think are, you know, the answer. You could argue it's just like with this, and you know, as a kid you have this idea that you're gonna, you know, meet some girl and everything will be just right, and blah blah blah, and you'll have this life together and blah. No, it doesn't. Where does it work like that? Where in reality is that the outcome? And even having these arguments with certain people, you know, certain privileged people, no doubt, or people that have gotten lucky in life, and so they have sort of a little kind of pleasant notion of how it works. Would they really trade places with the average human being? Would they really put themselves back in the pool to be one of them? I mean, would the fancy pantses, you know, living on their plantation, you know, with the slaves, would they really want to just, you know, pull out of a random hat where they can pull the slave card themselves? You know, would they really trade places? Oh no, I don't think they would. Would they risk it? No, they wouldn't risk being the failures. They'd run like hell from even the prospect of such a thing. And the fact that they don't have enough brains to figure out that that's the real world we live in, is that if you're going to embrace or endorse life, you know, that or defend it in some way, you're defending all of those failures. And you're basically saying, I wouldn't mind living that life. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, sure you wouldn't. I mean, you're just lying. You're lying to me. You're lying to yourself. You'd live their life voluntarily. Bullshit. You know, so what are you defending? You know, oh, I'm defending the utopia where those people aren't born. Those people don't exist. You know, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we're really close to that. Yeah, just inches away. I mean, that's going to happen any day now. We're going to have a little perfect utopia, you know, where there are no losers. You know, there's all the women are beautiful and all the men are, you know, strong and, you know, mature and don't say fuck too much or cunt, and do all the right things, and just act just perfectly, whatever perfectly is, right? We can't even agree on what the perfect image of a woman and a perfect image of a male is. Let alone are we anywhere close to creating a world where we're all so so excellent that we don't even bother competing with each other or doing anything, because we're all just so pleased with each other's company. We're all just so interesting, so perfect, and so great, and everything is so wonderful and so spectacular. But anyway, it just people are just so frickin' stupid. So anyway, I'm just waiting to hit the comment button, because I guess those were the subjects I really wanted to deal with. I mean, nihilism when you understand the fact that the universe has created different things in the universe, right? Pieces of chalk and human beings are really different things. And it's just kind of silly to say human beings are chalk. I mean, in terms of their real meaning in the universe. Like, they don't have any characteristics that make them distinctly different than chalk, especially in judging something like, well, could it have an element of value attached to it? And to not recognize that having sentience, being able to feel, makes you value relevant. It's just, what are you, too stupid? You mean if I put a sentient kind of organism and, let's make up some new kind of animal or some kind of new, I'm just saying, if I put a cat, I put any animal on some planet somewhere, you don't think it matters whether it feels good or it feels bad? It doesn't matter as a fact. It's not going to mean the difference between, the universe functioning well or the universe functioning badly. And do you really think somebody has to show up and say whether it functions or not? I mean, I could have a train wreck somewhere because nobody saw it. It didn't happen. Is that what you're arguing? There could be some lost tribe somewhere on Earth, and I'm the only person that knows where they are, and I massacre all of them, in some brutally horrible way, and because nobody saw it, it didn't happen. It wasn't a fact in the universe. It just doesn't make any. How does your brain disconnect from the fact that we know this reality of having organisms that feel is a reality? It's just a fact. And once that exists, there's just no way to say there's no consequences. That the consequences of what happens to this piece of chalk are the same as the consequences of what happens to that feeling thing. What kind of path it has, through time. It just doesn't matter what the path is. No, all paths are the same. It's no longer a rational statement. Yes, all paths are the same for the chalk, as long as the chalk doesn't hit me in the eye, break a hole in my eyeball. Well, yes, then all the chalk paths are the same, as long as this chalk doesn't run over a cat or do something to hurt a feeling thing, that all the paths are the same. See, the chalk can't even escape the power of our capacity to be hurt. Because now the chalk becomes relevant based on what it will possibly do to other feeling things. And that's the whole point. We have two parts to our existence. We have the part where we're the vulnerable thing. We're the thing that's going to feel and be affected, and there's going to be a value tally created in terms of our existence, in terms of what we create as value. And then we have the chalk part where we might poke a hole in somebody else's eye and cause harm and pain. We might be very unproductive, very negative in our impact on the universe, in the sense of the universe of other sentient beings. We might not do them any favors. We might create a chain of events, a snowball, that avalanches their welfare in some catastrophic way. And so we have two parts. We play both roles in this game, the imposer and, we're the victim and the predator, the perpetrator, potentially both things. And that certainly makes our lives more interesting and complicated, and means that you can have this whole thing called a philosophical conversation, because again, it's about what's steering your car, you know, and the mechanism should be logically coherent in some sense. You know, I mean, there should be some connection between what your brain knows and which way your wheels turn. You know, and if I can inform you of the fact that you have this responsibility, that it will be a fact, that your existence will be, you know, that it will have a footprint. I mean, it will have a blood print. It'll put on the planet and on the universe and the whole thing. It's consequential. It's not some meaningless event. And what decisions you made are consequential. And yes, most of them you can't see far enough into the future to be able to say, I know what the right answer is for sure in a lot of events and circumstances. But you can certainly know what a right answer is going to look like. And it's not going to look like a rationalization for personal gain. It's not going to look like, oh, I get $50 out of the deal. You know, where you're obviously taking the bribe, where you're obviously saying what's in it for me, rather than saying, well, you know, what is the real consequence here? Yeah, I mean, somebody else having a broken leg is the same as me having a broken leg, except it's really not the same at all, because, you know, they have it when they have it, and I have it when I have it, and I'm a lot closer to it. You know, and the broken leg means a lot more when it's mine. You know, and those cheats are kind of obvious pitfalls. We're all subject to taking those obvious cheats and finding some way to keep them close and make rationalizations and excuses to keep those in our boat so we can be protected from reality. But, you know, intelligence still should have a, you know, it should still eat at your brain a little that, yeah, what am I doing? Am I making excuses? Am I just rationalizing for my personal advantage? Or am I accepting as truth that this is all, you know, that I shouldn't be advocating for a system that is unfair or a cheat or something else because I'm taking advantage of it? And that's a hard sell, just because we can see in the way the world functions and how it dysfunctions, that the reason everything has been compromised by people protecting themselves from their own liabilities. They don't want to make crimes because they know they commit the same crime, you know, and they might be vulnerable to the same punishment and all that. They don't want accountability. They all want to hide behind some VPN, you know, and pretend, oh no, it's the bars are there for security. I'm putting bars on my windows as security. Well, yes, they're radioactive and they're killing the neighbors slowly but surely. But, you know, they're for my protection. You know, yes, they have machine guns built in, but, you know, it's for my protection. Yes, I do shoot people walking down the street. You know, and it's, you know, these are all just rationalizations. I shot him before he became a criminal. Yes, that 5-year-old kid was sure going to become a criminal. I shot him in self-defense because, you know, 10 years from now, he was going to rob my house. I mean, you know, this is what I just mean. You can play with words and, you know, concepts and manipulate them and distort them and pervert them into nonsense, you know, and call that self-defense. We see it in the politics, right? You can stalk somebody and then it's it's their fault that they become afraid and resist, and you're allowed to shoot them then. You know, amazing bullshit. Gets sold as the right answer when clearly it's an answer that's just convenient to the people who want to make excuses for completely horrible outcomes to the concept that they endorsed. They endorsed something. People have a right to defend themselves, you know, but they defend and then they end up defending all kinds of, you know, horrible perversions of that idea just to protect the part that they're interested in. You know, they don't want anything to cast doubt. So, you know, they have to defend the worst. So it's sort of like the cops and the rest of them. They defend the worst of their membership just because they can't allow there to be any broach of their integrity. You know, and it's just silly. It's stupid. it's in the long run very unproductive. All right, so I guess we'll do some of these comments. So there was some asshole, I already deleted him. He's just such an asshole. So he brought up Zofty and how, in Europe they're all so sophisticated. They all have this conversation all the time, and they really get what life is and all that horse shit. And it's just that horse shit. There's half of them are still bowing to some sort of king thing. It's just like they have a clue. But there's no hard evidence of any of that. But and so many of these philosophers that are supposed to be getting to the point never really get to the point. I mean, they never really get to the story of the fact that it's still a bug planet. I mean, that's the real context of our existence. It's just understanding we're just bugs. And yeah, bugs do all kinds of neat things, right? Some bugs are iridescent, some bugs build nests out of mud, some build them out of this, some do this. Lots of interesting things. But we're just bugs that, yeah, we can do physics, we can draw on boards and make pictures, we can, use language and talk all this sophisticated crap. But the basic function is still a bug. I mean, it's still just a stupid thing saying, feed me, comfort me, okay, let me satisfy my compulsions. Now, we're obviously not as bad as a bug in the sense that, like, a cow is more like a bug in the sense that, once the cow becomes mature, to survive, it basically has to do some horribly redundant crap all day long. Just eat grass and fart and whatever, And so it basically, turns into less interesting an organism, just because it doesn't need much brain for that. And so it really doesn't use much. It's just because it doesn't have to do anything very complicated. And this you can see that then some insects have to live very complicated lives. Some are really simple, worm, and some are really complicated. You got to fly here and fly there, and you got to sense this, and you got to smell the air, and you got to do all this detective work. And so it's just that's all we're doing. We're just bugs that have a more complex environment, that we have to navigate. But in some ways, it's really not very complex because we're still doing the birds and the bees thing, right? We're still doing primarily our little vain, posing, peacocky kind of bullshit, pretty bug, smart bug, some bug with some kind of, I got some stuff, and for what purpose? So I can get me some. And, and the get me some is kind of like the roller coaster ride or going out to dinner or some other bullshit where if you analyze it, you say, gee, all of that for this? I mean, once you're done doing it, like Christmas or whatever, it's like, well, that wasn't all that spectacular, was it? You know what I mean? It's not quite the experience your brain thinks it is before. When it's going into it, it thinks it's going to be this, and when it gets done with it, it's like, oh, that was like this. It just didn't do that much. It wasn't that, didn't solve, all my old problems still seem to exist, and there seems to be some new ones. So sort of the argument that once you have something, you lose appreciation for having it, I have some. I found some Post-it notes in the garbage. Feels good. I got some free stuff, but I don't know. Have I ever used them? What am I going to use them for? How do you even use them? I've never really found that they're effective at anything. But anyway, I mean, sometimes when it's there open, you can use it. You scribble something on it. Okay, get that part. You stick it somewhere, and then the paper gets, and falls off eventually, and Well, anyway, I'm just saying that once, actually using something and having it and security and all these different things that we're after, it doesn't seem like it works, right? It just seems like the carrot is always just out of range of our teeth. That we can get a little nibble off of it, but we can never chew the damn thing. There's no real food here. We're just chasing the idea of food, and we get little pieces out of something, like, oh, yeah, that was sort of a cool experience anyway. Maybe next time I'll get to third base, with the chicks or something. I get, blah blah blah. You just chase, and you think you're actually gonna get somewhere, but you're just gonna get somewhere the same place you're gonna get if you just wanked or did this or did that. You're just, you really haven't gotten anywhere. All you're making is memories, and then you're storing these memories as ambitions. You reform the memory into an ambition to redo it in some new way that'll be more spectacular. I mean, you can analogize it to so many things, like even in kind of doing artwork. You're always just pursuing some kind of improvement, or some kind of getting somewhere, but you never really do. You never really get there, in terms of it being what you really wanted it to be. I don't know how to say that exactly, but you can sort of get the idea that the chase is what it's more about than, I've sort of said that. We're sort of designed not to be satisfied. We're designed to be unsatisfied. We're designed to be uncomfortable and to keep fighting with the agenda, to have an agenda, okay? And that's the design function, is to keep moving, keep pursuing, keep chasing, keep playing the game, and our brains keep feeding that with these delusions of, it smells better over there. It's we're just chasing air conditioning or something, some sort of environment that makes us feel better. And some sort of perspective even too. So anyway, it's just this silly little chase game. People, I guess, have some inside their head. I mean, I know I have. They have some fantasy utopian kind of, you could make up a Matrix story where they'd say, what video game would I want to play forever, and what kind of world would I want to live in. And they think, when you think of that way, you say, oh yeah, that would be a great place to create that world where I do all the great things, and I'm great, and I'm wonderful, and I'm perfect, and I get everything I want. And they think, that sort of makes sense to them. But to do that, you have to say that all the other worlds created in all the other brains, where people got off on, killing women, having sex with corpses, doing all kinds of weird and disgusting things, because that's their vision of a good date and a fun time, because of their own issues. You have to embrace that too and say, well, that somehow makes sense. Well, no, of course it doesn't. The universe doesn't need some asshole plugging his electric butt dildo machine in. Does the universe need that in the universe? Somebody who really, thank you, Mr. Butt Machine. I mean, does the universe need that? No, it doesn't need somebody fulfilling their ambitions, because their ambitions are all bullshit. So your notion of how grand it is just a notion. It doesn't have anything to do with making a real argument defending it, because it's just some stupid thing that needs, and you don't need the needs. You don't need. Need isn't really needed, because it doesn't, in itself, it's not a good thing. It's just an excuse things use to pursue what they don't need to have, really. What the universe doesn't need to have as a story. Alright, so we'll do some comments. Lament the stupidity of people. Alright, Gary, when meditating, you realize that your brain is just an organ. Oh, do you really? It isn't some other kind of thing that gave you that indication. You got it from meditating. So you never saw like a picture of a human being with a brain inside their skull, and you never heard about neurons and electricity, and yeah, it wasn't something else that made you realize there's a brain in your fucking skull, and that the brain is controlling everything. Well, controlling a lot of things. And then that's the place where all your sense organs collect all the information and, you know, do this little consciousness thing. You got that because you meditated. Meditating just brought you that special information from the special source. I don't think so. Which needs some work. Thoughts, ideas to process. Wasn't that just quaint and cute? It needs it. You know, it's not its primary function, which is just a sense organ. I mean, all the brain is intended to do is sense the environment and trigger reflexive reactions, right? Does it look hot? Does it look cold? Is the sun out? Is the sun not out? You know, that's all it started off as, knee-jerk reflexes. It's just a bunch of reflexes, and that's all it is. And these thoughts, you're calling them, they're just reflexive nodes that can combine in certain order, and then a trigger goes off. You know, it's all just triggers. Reflexive triggers. Okay, so, and that's what it's made to do, is to optimize that function of input and output. Anyway, like the liver needs some fluids to clear. Well, I don't know if that's what it's doing, right? I mean, it's really processing your blood. But I don't know if that's a fluid thing, you know, but whatever. I mean, I don't know if it's specifically oriented to fluids. It's about chemistry, but whatever. So the brain needs some thoughts to process. Well, that's all just mushy bullshit. You know, obviously the brain is on, and if you want to metaphor it to a calculator, it's just basically saying, even if you don't give me any, even if you don't push the buttons, I'm going to say what buttons you might have pressed if you were going to press buttons. So I'm going to press some myself. So yes, your physiology will talk to you if you're not already busy doing something else. So if I can make myself less busy, then I'll be more aware of what, oh, I got an ache in this finger. It's achy. My knee isn't too good, you know. And, you know, you'll be more aware of other things. So it will find something to hear. It will find something to see. Even if there's, you know, there's nothing much to see here where I am. Alright, so I'm not doing a whole bunch of visual processing because there's not too much interesting going on. So I am really kind of internal. You know, my senses are kind of shut off because I'm occupied with playing with words at the moment. And, you know, there's a whole script being written that I'm speaking. And so it's busy. Brain's busy, so it really can't pay much attention to this other stuff. And if I start paying attention to it, if I start looking at it, and all of a sudden I'm not going to be saying anything relevant or meaningful, because then I'm going to lose all my trains of thought. They're all going to stop, and it takes time to get the steam back up in the engine and get the train moving again. So, you know, but that's what the brain is doing. So, but this whole, you know, I don't care. You want to meditate, do it all you want. But to claim that it is some source, this is the source of enlightenment, is as bad as the stupid LSD people claiming that, oh yeah, you understand the universe by getting, you know, zonked. You know, getting delusional. That delusions are good for seeing the truth. I don't think so. Anyway, so the brain needs some thoughts to process, but that's not your essence. Oh, so it's not my essence. So the only thing I'm saying is relevant is this consciousness and the idea that it can actually acquire information. Like I said, we can learn about the roller coasters and how risky they are. We can learn that, oh, making Frankenstein's a bad idea. Don't do that. We can learn lots of things. We can learn about the inefficiency of not giving people, you know, not forcing everybody to earn it, you know, giving it away, inheritance, all that cheating, you know, head starts. Oh, that's very ineffective. You know, it completely destroys incentive for the rest of the horses. You know, it's a bad idea. Don't do that. We can understand that, yeah, we're living more for evading the whip than we are for getting the carrot. You know, we get more reward out of getting the whip to stop than we get, you know, from, oh, yummy carrot. That kind of thing. But that's not your essence. The essence of yourself are not your thoughts. The essence of yourself are not your thoughts. Well, I'd say the only thing that makes any significance, that means anything, certainly is my feelings. Makes it relevant whether I feel good or bad, and the amount of thoughts I have to use to, kind of ensure that I don't do something too stupid to make my life worse, like, eat cancer or something. That's sort of irrelevant. But the real value is the intelligence, yes, the ability to understand the truth rather than believe in fables and have a bunch of nonsense rolling around inside my head. No point in connecting dots that don't exist in the real world. No point in being deluded, living in your illusions of reality when they're not accurate. So yeah, you can say the essence of yourself are not your thoughts. I'm saying that's all there is that means anything out of this whole adventure, is the fact that we are bugs capable of seeing the truth and not just chasing iridescence, not just being fooled by, it's a pretty color. We can do a lot more than that. Alright, so you will realize when you meditate, just take your religious horse shit and shove it up your ass. It's just baby talk nonsense. Go ahead, like I said, meditate all you want. Put your feet behind your head, do whatever stand on your head. Who fucking cares? Alright, but don't sell me this idiotic notion that somehow, oh, yeah, that's what's missing. I haven't meditated, therefore I haven't figured out what, jackass? That I wouldn't like to be called Hans? Yeah, well, I wouldn't, frankly. Yeah, it just doesn't sound like, oh, Hans is going to go conquer something. Oh, Hans is? Yeah. Vigo. Okay, that's a name. Hans? Yeah, well. Anyway, fuck off. Ugh, religious kooks. Like I said, it can't hurt, right? Somebody wants to meditate, it can't really hurt, right? I'm just saying, okay, I'll take away all these little thoughts. Oh shit, all the big thoughts are coming in now. Okay, big thoughts are coming in. Life, oh, I'm gonna die. Oh shit, how am I gonna die? Oh, it might be bad. That's not good. I can have all. Who's gonna clean my desk? What are they gonna do with all my cool stuff? I can. Oh, okay. Let's give me a little bit of panic. This meditating. Okay, let's get rid of all those thoughts too. Blah blah blah. Got rid of all my thoughts. Oh, my stomach just went. My hands are heavy now. I gotta drop those down. What the fuck? Okay, go ahead and do that. I can think of better things to do, frankly. There's other organs I can play with. There's more fun. Shit, look at this pile of crap. Alright, what are your thoughts on sentient organism that has lived a full, happy life? Again, so where is this perfect world that exists? And again, it's not about whether or not some birds look very healthy and happy. It's about what's the price for the bird. How many birds didn't get happy and healthy for you to have that bird, right? So, I mean, for every Arnold Schwarzenegger, in terms of, how many dumpy doodlittles are there, right? So for every Arnold, how many misformed, silly shaped, bizarrely, people can't even walk straight. Well, I mean, Arnold could hardly talk straight. But anyway, how many are there? That's the equation, shithead. Okay, it's not about whether, there's once in a while a life is really easy on planet Earth. There's a bug that's born that just has it. Everything goes his way. Who cares? That's not reality. All right. What are your thoughts on live life with very little instance of suffering? ? Well, I mean, again, define the instance, because frankly, I might imagine that your instances of suffering are probably, maybe your standards are a lot lower than my standards for Well, that was way too much for the way too little of just living a delusion. Living in this little ego chase, this little silly game of pretense, of pretending you're winning or pretending I'm doing better than those losers. Just moving goalposts all over the place to sit there and pretend that I'm playing a really cool game of some kind. So why would I pay anything to play a stupid game? Again, this is, once you're intelligent, it's tic-tac-toe. You're not a kid anymore. You're not going to be fooled by these silly little nonsense that there's something to be gained by starting to draw your little X's and your little O's, because there's no game to play. I mean, and then you realize, oh, the whole psychology that's telling me I need to play this game is just a bunch of ego crap. It's just this competitive crap where I'm going to gain some ego points. And what does that mean? Well, it must mean I'm somehow insecure. It must mean that somehow I'm emotionally got issues because I need to win. I need to, I don't feel like, again, you're always going to think your dick's too small or something's inadequate. And so what's the point of paying any price to play a game of inadequacies? Here, I'll give you a little tiny penis, but if you play this life game, you can get all kinds of hats, or your nose can grow, or some other thing can do something, and that'll give you special penis points. You can overcome your inefficiencies by, winning these other little coins and sticking them on you, and you're all shiny, and, it's all just some game where we go out to collect glitter. Why would you pay a stub toe to play the stupid collect glitter game? Huh? Rhetorical question, but whatever. For instance, I'm doing all I can, applying the idea of minimizing suffering in the way I care for my cat. So you're going to say that you know how much your cat has suffered. And you know what it's thought of all of its experiences. You have knowledge of all of that. Anyway, I have adopted him. I gave him attention, made sure he's fed and plays constantly. Well, I don't know what that even means, right? Because most cats I knew like to sleep. They eat and then they sleep. Anyway, and I can tell just by looking, by how expressive he is. Oh, aren't you? You're so in touch. All right, well, this is somebody with a matrix in their screen name, so we already know. That his life is constant happiness, play, and sleep. Well, isn't that? You just know that, except when he's coughing up something, right? But it's all, he loves that. He loves that puking up shit. That's fun. His death will come. Well, you figured that part out, did you? And you already know that it'll be well worth it. He'll die just the right way. Okay. Likely many years in the future. And, how do you know that? Anyway. And I'm aware of that. And once it does, I'll do all I can to make it as comfortable as I can. Well, what exactly is all you can? What are you going to do? Are you going to actually wait until it's puking up blood before you kill it? I mean, what exactly are you going to say it's okay for him to experience before I panic and start saying I have to do something about it? How bad is it going to have to get? And, of course, you got the cat's permission to make these decisions, right? Yeah, sure you did. Oh, shit. Anyway. I'll do all I can to make it as comfortable as I can. Well, I mean, all you can won't be enough. I'm sorry. I've been there and done that. And all you can is, I should have killed him 6 months ago. That's going to be all you can. Because most of the diseases are going to be incremental. You're not going to really know something's wrong until it's really wrong. And, it's always going to be this, oh, well, maybe tomorrow. Oh, maybe tomorrow. Oh, maybe tomorrow bullshit. Would you say that in such cases the result was positive? What result is the argument to be made? You think that because we feel good when we don't feel bad, okay, that somehow we've accomplished something. And I guess my argument is that's only your delusion. All right, that you're winning by gaining the relief that we gain in existing. We're full of tension. We can feel it. A meditating guy, right? If you do a little of that meditating thing, you'll feel your tension. You'll realize that you're just a bunch of, aggravations. And the truth is that any time you feel good, it's because you've distracted yourself. It's like the sneeze reboot. You've escaped your physical reality for a moment and go, whoa. Because, whoa, that feels good not being me. It feels good not being, the computer running. And that's all we're feeding on. So I would argue that you're just feeding on a negative cycle anyway. The perception of the good is relief. And you're just so conditioned by gaining your relief by stopping the whip that you don't know how unproductive that is. But whatever. You're saying it's worth it. I'm saying I can't imagine how it's worth it. And I certainly wouldn't impose it. So that's my argument. I'm not going to make something else feel bad so I can feel good. I'm not voting for that. I might do it in my own life. I don't know. I might know. Even if I don't want to bother trying to figure out how many ways I'm taking too much. I'm just not voting for anyone ever taking any more. I'm not voting for it. I'm not saying there's any good fucking reason to play with this mess. You think you're winning something. You think the universe needs it. I can't see how it at all makes any sense to play with this thing that can feel pain. Why waste energy on it? Why put a coin in this machine? It's not going to produce anything that spectacular. So fuck it. And the risk is this huge risk for a tiny possible reward of some contrived notion of a free ecstasy. Like you can get to ecstasy for free. Like you don't have to first create starvation or hunger or desperate need out of some kind of real bad experiences to create the context that creates this notion of a happy. That you don't have to realize how bad it is to be poor to know what it, how good it feels to win the lottery. Like somehow you could win the lottery and not know that winning the lottery means something because it makes you rich and gives you immunity from discomfort and makes all your stuff clean and it gives you this wonderful sunsets and creates all kinds of wonderful moments. Of course you have to know that, or you're not going to say, oh, it's a good thing. Well, anyway. Alright, well, whatever. That's just, it's such a slimy way to get to whatever your silly rationalization is. Does an uncomfortable or even painful death completely invalidate years of pleasant life? I don't know. I would say yes. I mean, obviously, that's what I would say. I would say the pleasant life is nothing. It didn't need to exist. It has no, redeeming value. Its value, whatever it was used up by the immunity from the bad that you were getting while you were having the comfort. And clearly the bad death is way too much of a price to pay for something you didn't need to happen in the first place, and there will be no loss to the universe if it's deprived of whatever this thing is that you're saying has value. If it didn't happen, just like the absent Martians, I'm not grieving because they're not sitting around sleeping like a comfy cat. I just don't see how the universe is terribly diminished because there aren't a bunch of sleeping cats on Mars. Now, when you can explain to me how the absence of sleeping cats on Mars is some sort of diminishment of the universe, like it's somehow a much lesser place because it doesn't have these sleeping cats on Mars, then maybe I can get some of this stupid argument that you're saying there's some value in any of this crap. I'm saying the only thing that really has value is the pain and the suffering, and until you can eradicate that, you can't really talk about this being anything worth doing. And then once you eradicate that, there's still going to be a hard argument to say, well, the green chalk thinks there needs to be yellow chalk, so therefore there needs to be yellow chalk. But what if we just got rid of the green chalk? Then why does the yellow chalk have to exist? The green chalk doesn't need it anymore. So what do we need yellow chalk for? Right? And you could just do the inverse. That the yellow chalk is the only reason why the green chalk exists. We'll just get rid of the chalk. Fuck it. Now, problem solved. Alright. If you concede this point, fuck you. Wouldn't then this imply that a theoretical moral machine of creating organisms and making them experience pleasure forever be a moral thing to do? So again, I'm just saying I don't see any hope of you making this silly argument. Again, I can't see any moral imperative to create living organisms on Mars so they can eat and sleep and be comfortable and play with their whatever round ball-y thing. Fuck you. Alright, since you conclude that eating a cupcake has positive value, no, I said eating a cupcake is clearly in this category that's substantially different from nail in the eye. So play word games. But go ahead, play word games. I never said having a cupcake makes nail in the eye go away, or that it has value in any kind of way, except its unnegativeness. It's clearly very different, but it's zero. The difference between 0 and -4 trillion. That's the difference. Okay? It's only positive relative to the negative, shithead. But play your little word games. Although, small one. No, I never said that. So, I said it was a very big positive value relative to nail in the fucking eye. Alright, anyway. And being tortured has an overwhelming negative moral value. So again, he's, I've overtly, in the very videos he's quoting this cupcake crap from and the rest of this stuff, I've said 4 million times the word morality has no place in a rational conversation. It's religious rhetoric. Alright, and you want to keep doing this. You want to keep saying there's some sort of doctrine from nowhere, from the, gods or something. No, the doctrine is merely an equation, a value equation. That's all there is. All right, there's some understanding of what might have some element of value, and all you're saying is what are those elements add up to? And morally right and wrong is just defined by, well, if you have a more efficient path to take, you take the more efficient road. You reduce your blood footprint. It's not a moral statement. It's just a statement about the fact that one thing is good in the sense that it's, you're making a profit versus making a loss. That's the difference. Okay. Is a life full of cupcakes and pleasure, thus a moral positive on the world? So just more putrid baby talk. Okay, I realize that there are some modes of life that are inherently propagating suffering. Well, what does that even mean? The point is the risk. You think you have some place where you're making living things where you don't have any risk. Oh, you don't have risk of deformity or risk of failure or risk of alcoholism or risk of cancer or risk of anything. No, there's no other modes, jackass. There's no special modes you can go to where you figured out how to stop all those things. Oh, you're such a shithead. Such as predators in the animal kingdom. But I am not completely convinced on the subject of removing suffering only by prevention. Who's saying only by prevention? If you can remove it with morphine, go ahead. If you can remove it by euthanasia, go ahead. I'm for a lot of different ways of removing suffering. But clearly prevention is the smartest one. Again, we're just talking about you have 3 choices. Very efficient, less efficient, even less efficient. You're saying there's some reason I should consider even less efficient and less efficient. When I'm saying, why would I consider those when this one over here is more efficient? Oh, shit. I think your philosophy would reach more people. Well, fuck you. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's a good enough statement. Be more accessible and less morally... See, here he goes again. Reprehensible to some. So it's morally reprehensible. If the person doesn't understand there's no God and there's no morality, in the sense there's no dogmatic dictates, we have to understand the truth. The truth isn't going to be told to us by the stars or the cosmos or the galaxies. We have to look at the reality and find the truth, okay? So those that you find aren't some sort of moral edict. They're just arguments. Okay. Less morally reprehensible to some. If you advocated for minimizing the suffering of others, well, again, I do advocate it shit for brain in all kinds of ways. Why do you think I argue about something like capitalism versus incentive economics? Why would I argue for any of these other things than to point out that we're doing things horribly inefficient? Why would I make any cranks about letting Google control the internet? Why would I do any of this other stuff if I didn't think, oh yeah, these are all huge inefficiencies that we should fix? Solar panels on roofs, for example. Stupid as fuck. Anyway, suffering of others through one's own conduct, but without, let's see. If you advocate for minimizing the suffering of others through one's own conduct, whatever that would mean, but without the sentient genocide element. So again, there's no sentient genocide involved. So just more horse shit. Oh, people don't understand. They think that if you don't have a baby, you murdered a baby. Oh, is that what they think? It was genocide because you stopped somebody from having babies. That's genocide. Genocide isn't actually killing people or doing something like that. No, genocide is you gave somebody a fucking condom and therefore you committed genocide against their population. Oh, fuck you. Clearly. Alright, one's own condo, animal. Alright, by simply caring for people, so this is just more horse shit. Like you love them by torturing them. Oh, aren't you just so fucking charming? So, again, you have a cat for what purpose? To serve your needs or to serve the cat's needs? Because frankly, the cat doesn't really need to exist, and you know it. The cat isn't going to accomplish or do this or do that. He's not going to cure cancer. It's not going to be some huge productivity issue that's at risk here. And that if he goes to sleep some night and never wakes up in the morning, you can't make any kind of rational argument that the universe is now diminished. You really can't make any such rational argument. For animals, all organisms in this sphere of influence, you remove a lot of suffering. So again, this is just so fucking trivial. So you've somehow undone the fact that, 10,000 octopuses will die for one octopus to reach maturity. You somehow undo all of those facts of the real physical world. How many organisms don't even experience life really for more than a few seconds before they're brutally killed, torn to pieces, feeling every little bit of it? Okay, that message realistically can reach farther. Well, it just says you, mushface. Okay, because it's not as radical. Again, there's nothing radical unless you think evolution is a radical theory. Taking real responsibility for the real facts of evolution, which is we're still fucking bugs. We're just fish. Okay, it's just the truth. And the only thing we're doing is something more complicated, not something prettier. Not something more elegant, not something, all this other crap. And the only redeeming value is in the process of doing that, we can also rationally describe reality. And that's it. And you want to irrationally describe it and put hugs and kisses on it and turn it into some sort of emotional thing. One of the very things that the rational person is fighting against is the silly, selfish, emotional bullshit. Okay, realistically can reach further because it's not as radical. So just more of this how to talk to people bullshit. And every individual is a different human being. So every one of them has to be talked to in a different way to be appealed to. Everybody's going to, some people find me obnoxious. Some people find me lovable, blah, 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 blah. All this little nuanced bullshit you want to talk about. Yes, the way to reach people clearly is in dramatic performance. So in some sense this all has to be consolidated into these bits of cinematic metaphor, storytelling. That's the way it's done. And it's just that the Shakespeare stories now need to be rewritten a little bit deeper, where when they say to be or not to be, they're asking a really important philosophical question. All right. In the end, what would do more to lower suffering? A radical message that only reaches a few. Again, just doesn't have anything to do with how radical the message is. We know the memes are driven by people. People tell the news what the news should tell them, right? The news is feeding people what they want to hear. It isn't telling them the truth. So yes, lots of the mechanisms of how information is distributed are perverted by the fact that people don't want to hear the truth and all of that crap. So there's lots of truths that aren't being talked about. There frankly is only a tiny handful of people, maybe in the hundreds, maybe thousands, who actually understand what the Federal Reserve is and what the money in there is, which is just debt. It's just borrowed money from the federal government. They never cashed the bank's checks. And they bought stuff, and they just never cashed the checks. So it's just credit card purchases. And, only 0.000000001% of the people on Earth know the truth. Lots of truths are hidden from people. Some are hidden because people don't want people to know, and some are hidden because people don't want to know the truth. They want to be told lies. They want to be told fables. They want their side to win. Just like you. A bunch of douchebag rationalizations just evading the subject. Again, if the universe needs happy living things, why don't I feel any of that? Why don't I grieve at all for the life that's not on Mars? Why doesn't it just scream to me, oh, it's just such a tragedy, all of that missed fun? No, I can't find it anywhere in the sense mechanism to recognize this horrible loss. But I certainly can appreciate, hey, it's really good there aren't a bunch of people doing chemotherapy on Mars. Excellent. Yeah, no chemotherapy on Mars. Wow, really big win there. Or one can reaches a few, or one that spreads wide, but still lets some suffering through, whatever all this mush is. So he knows how to do it better. Yeah, well, whatever. Even if I don't fully agree, whatever. I have tremendous respect for you. Well, you're not showing it. Frankly, not even getting the cupcake thing right with them and using the word moral. Oh, you're showing huge disrespect. As a philosopher, and the way you choose to live your life, your honesty, and you don't pretend to be a guru. Yeah, that's right. I'm saying the truth is right here in front of us. I mean, there's nothing to guru about. This isn't like some mysterious answer to life that you need to find somewhere. I mean, all you have to do is be a little bit honest and honestly look at what actually, take out your magnifying glass and look at what's crawling on everything. Look at what this thing is made out of, and be honest about just how horrible the carnage is. How bad it would be if you were one of those people born Siamesed, with your head glued to somebody else's ass. Alright, you made me think about a lot of things, scary things. Thank you. Well, I don't even know if I can muster a... Alright, you're sort of forgiven for some of your horse shit, but whatever. Alright, so whatever this is, the Chad European Federalist. Oh, gee, that, look at the great icon. He's actually doing the bug thing. Well, it's a lizard, I think. So, life is life. Nah. Yeah, that's just so brilliant. I mean, way to use your brain and such. Jesus Christ. Do you like rock music and metal? No, I don't really like anything anymore, frankly. I mean, all of it just, it's all based on some sort of what you were doing and nostalgia and this kind of stuff and that kind of stuff. So I still have an attachment to the songs of my youth when I was deluded and stupid. But you know, and it's a little bit of classical music now and then, or this or that. But I can't say that I have any. I mean, I don't even know. I don't even hear anything recognizable anymore. The only music I hear coming out of people's cars now is all this, you know, nigga, slut, nigga, and some sort of, you know, happy pinata music. But that's all I hear. There's no other music in the universe apparently anymore. So I mean, that must be selling big, because I don't even hear classical music anymore. You know, I don't hear classic rock anymore, even coming out of anybody's car. So the world has to changing and such. I thought you were a physicist. I don't even know what does these two subjects have to do with each other? Oh God, it's insane. Yeah, the definition of a physicist is the thing open to question. Okay, do you actually have to have a physics degree to be a physicist? I don't know. I'm obviously doing physics better than them, so I would argue that I'm better at doing physics. So, but yes, I am a doer of physics. Whatever. But stupid comment. Oh, he's that asshole from the other channel. So, yeah, what a douchebag. Jordan Peterson said that animals cannot have rights because rights are reciprocal, which is more horseshit. They're intrinsic. They intrinsically flow from the properties you have. So a child has rights. It doesn't have to respect anybody else's. It doesn't have to do anything to have those rights. It has rights built out of the fact that the child has properties of vulnerability. And that's all the rights are built out of, is a recognition of the vulnerability. So again, that's just horseshit. Anyway, which rights don't have to be, and you discussed that. Yes, of course I did. But he believes that in order to reciprocate rights, you need to feel contempt and shame. Well, of course he's an idiot. So why are you telling me what Jordan Peterson thinks? I don't even want to bother reading it. I've already talked to him. He's an idiot. Don't have children in the first place, right? Okay, that's simple enough. Colony of Cells is my favorite commenter on YouTube. Colony of Cells. So I guess somebody's called that. I guess, I don't know. I'll have to find out if somebody's called that. Jesus. Right, so we'll save that for later. Anyway. Blanting Bloss. I don't know what that means, so I'm just gonna, I can't even, oh, it's this stupid Indonesia thing. God, these people are so stupid. Alright, some people say that eating animals is okay because it's legal, but I guess that these words also got out of slave owners' mouth many years ago. Yes, of course. Obviously, lots of things we've made illegal. I mean, gambling on dog fights, gambling on cockfight, you know what I'm saying? I mean, lots of things we figured out are too cruel to be justified, so you don't do them. Alright. You high on drugs, get some sleep. Okay, enough of that guy. Yeah, go fuck yourself until appropriately uncomfortable. Alright, you just need to penetrate the body a little bit to stop someone from running. I don't know what that means. Wrong. But I do agree that they should have a runaway gun. Yes, that would be the idea. They should have more weapons. And frankly, again, you know, running away shouldn't be a capital offense in the sense you get killed for it. I just don't know why cops can't shoot lower. I mean, you know, they're obviously shooting heart and higher to be killing people at this rate. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it's, you know, it's not a subject I give that much of a shit about, frankly. Hey Gary, what do you think of adoption? I think you have to be insane to want to watch a child maturate, to be invested in its welfare. So I think anybody who wants to do that for the fun of it is insanely sick. But I'd say the same thing about doctors and nurses almost, right? I mean, you gotta be a little bit fucked up to want to spend your days watching people suffer. So I don't get it. at all. Agree with no such thing as survival instinct. There you go. Yeah, I got some crap from somebody still arguing that we have such simple instincts. They barely exist as instincts. They're so simple. So you could argue like a gazelle is born. A few minutes later, it's running. Okay? Now, it's not running because it did a lot of practice and figured out how to run, right? I mean, it's just getting the program running. The program's already in there. That's got all this kind of motion thing, the right, step, left, right, right. It's got lots of stuff built in to help it. The same with like a little turtle that, wobbles to the ocean. It didn't have to learn how to walk. We do have to learn how to crawl and walk and do all this stuff. So we have the number of things you could call some sort of instinctive impulse is incredibly narrow. Now you could say that certain smells were built into sweetness and and the repulsive ones, like it's almost like universal that there was never a person that found the smell of death, rotting corpses pleasant. There might be 3 on earth, but it's so those you could in a sense argue are instincts, but they have nothing to do with survival. They have nothing to do with some mission. They just have to do with the fact that this is conducive to the welfare of the organism, that is, its capacity to stay alive and reproduce. But it's not really an instinct that says a survival instinct. It's a welfare instinct, if it's an instinct at all. And it's so distant from the ambition. Again, wanting to, rub your penis on something doesn't have much to do, needing to even, with the idea of procreating, except from nature's perspective. It doesn't have anything to do with from the animal doing it. There's no connection to I'm making babies. So I'm just saying to call it, that has something to do with an ambition. It's too distant. So I'm just saying this is the verbiage problem. I just don't think it's a fair way to describe the instinct as a survival instinct. Yeah, now. Spot on, strong thought. It's developed 1000% and sometimes, most times, never fail. Whatever. Yeah, the truth is we can be turned into anything through our maturation. You can make us into all kinds of different kinds of Frankenstein. And that's just the truth. And we're not born something. We're made into something. People shouldn't be doxing one another. Yes, that's a damn truth. Life is good enough for enough people to carry this on indefinitely. Well, whatever that even means. Most people are idiots. So you think their vote counts. I think their vote has ruined the voting process, frankly. Most people are deluded. So I could say to you that there's a whole bunch of religious people who are pro-life. They will overtly tell you that if there's no God, then life is horrible. So all of those votes are really votes on my side. Okay, so the world changes if you just change a few perspectives. Just tiny things change in people's brains, and the whole thing has to cascade, and they realize, oh, what looked like a yes answer was a no answer, because I didn't realize, Republicans were against abortion or something. They figure out some catch, and they say, oh, now I know why I don't want to vote for them. But whatever. Indefinitely. Instead of complaining, so again, he says this is complaining. It's not explaining, it's not arguing, it's not defending, it's just complaining. Yeah, fuck you. Put the work in to solve the things that cause suffering. Well, the thing that causes it is the thing defending it. The thing saying it has to or needs to exist. And the easiest way to prevent it all is just to stop it all. Just giving up, while entirely rational, is for fuckless pussies. So again, what's this giving up crap? Where am I giving up? What if the only sentient creatures left could avoid pointless suffering? Wouldn't the good things that come be experienced outweigh the bad. So this is more asshole who thinks there's real reason to grieve because there's no happy kitties on Mars. Oh, how sad. Oh, no. And be better than never existing. So again, how do you make that rational statement? I'm just saying, Mars has been vacant for a long time. You really do think that this is just some horrible tragedy that we should be doing something about it? We should go fix that, shouldn't we? We could go put some happy kittens on Mars, little Mars kittens. You'd think that's a real thing in your brain that's really happening. You thought of it first. I mean, it's just too stupid. So hopefully somebody told him to go to fuck himself until sufficiently impaired, until you walk funny. We live in a pain-pleasure matrix. Well, that's just kind of a silly word. Where one cannot exist without the other. Besides, even if we could create mostly pleasurable... I mean, the idea that these people haven't even figured out that, yeah, you need to be hungry to eat, and you need to be thirsty to find water satisfying, and, the idea that this idea of pleasure doesn't come out of nowhere. It's a kind of a tricky thing. And that, it's pretty hard to synthesize it, because even our best drugs and our best technology still doesn't come up with something all that spectacular, right? I mean, the side effects can be horrendous, and the experience isn't all that, is it? And, nature gives us this little orgasmic thing, and, that's a little... But again, that's just a long sneeze, right? If we could sneeze for a longer period of time, maybe people would spend all day, wanking their sneezer. Anyway. Probably enough. Oh, it's a derived energy comment. I still look up derived energy's channel sometimes. Totally fuck that guy's life for a fucking joint. Yeah, well, frankly, it wasn't his pot, which was he was actually being quite a little heroic character, saving a girl from much greater harm, right? I mean, a woman getting busted would have been much worse. So he was taking the fall for somebody else, which does make sort of sense, because derived energy didn't seem like a pothead, It didn't seem like his style at all. And, so whatever. So the whole story, whatever. The story is just sad and tragic, and these are all the untold little stories that most people don't have to account for, and they don't have to justify. And it's just sad. But the sadder thing was derived energy was a fucking imbecile, because he's one of those moronic nihilists who somehow couldn't figure out that the reason why you want to prevent it is because of what's happening in nature. And he thought all of that was irrelevant, which is really dumb. But anyway, but he certainly got the Mars doesn't need people point. So that was a big one, right? So he figured out the fact that you don't need this thing. He didn't need like a big negative reason not to like life. He realized that there was no real positive reason. That he didn't grieve the non-existent Martians. And that fact is glaring, as a fact. It just says right to you, well then why do I think humans need to exist? If Martians don't need to exist, and Uraniuses and Isms and Moonikins and all these other things don't need to exist, Sunikins, why do I think humans need to exist? I mean, the logic's pretty glaring. If my brain can't figure out that the rest of these places in the universe don't need to have this crap on them, why do I think this crap needs to be here? And that was the simplicity of his argument, pretty much. But anyway. But yeah, I couldn't. The nihilism thing is just too stupid. Still got a fine head of hair for a guy in his 60s. Yeah, lucky that way, I suppose. That's all it comes down to. I have been, very lucky. I mean, just the truth. But being lucky didn't prevent me from seeing how unlucky I could have been. And I suppose that's the different ways you can be lucky. You can be lucky and just see how lucky you are. But you can be lucky and be so grateful for how unlucky you weren't. And that gratitude just overwhelms me in terms of recognizing how I would never want to pull do it again card. To try again. You know, try to get luckier. I don't want to try to get luckier. I want to try to never get unluckier. Okay, I want protection against unlucky. I don't want to go for more lucky. And the fact is, most people think I'm not allowed to do that because they're going to impose it on me. They're going to force me to keep pulling from this stupid hat of shit. Alright, anyway. Till the next time and stuff. And stuff? No, that's not quite right. Till the next time and such. Okay, yes. I am getting old. So, videos will start getting more feeble. And I get a little hunchy. I make a video. Is this on? There'll be a day, I guess, when I'll really be gapped. I'm already gapped. I mean, I don't understand the young people at all. But, you know, they're so fucking stupid. But anyway, I'm not as gapped as I could be. Yeah, it's just the truth. I'm not as gapped as the rest of the 60-year-olds. You know, they're really in the land of the clueless. But anyway, till the next time and such. So forth and whatnot.